Good afternoon. I'm Jonathan Sweet with Boating Industry. Thanks for joining us for today's webinar, Proven Strategies for Engaging New Markets, produced by the RBLC New Markets Task Force. Presenting our webinar today is Tom Domerick, President of the National Marine Manufacturers Association. Tom will share the latest statistics on the Hispanic, African American, and Asian markets in the U.S., along with some original best practice videotape case studies featuring 5 different boating industry businesses. And just a note on those, with the videos, we've tested them. They seem to work fine broadcasting over the internet, but if you are on a slower connection, you may have some issues, and those videos will be archived later on, and Tom will mention that as well. If you have questions during the webinar, please submit those through the GoToWebinar interface right there on your screen. You should see a little questions tab, and we'll take those at the end. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Tom.
Thank you, Jonathan, and thank you all for joining us today to talk about some proven strategies for engaging new markets. A few years ago, we brought together a group of industry stakeholders to talk about, beyond Discover Boating, what do we need to be doing as an industry to grow sales between now, or between then, and 2020. And that group identified 6 primary areas of focus. And a Recreational Boating Leadership Council was established to facilitate the work of 6 task forces that were developed to work in each of these areas. And one of these 6 areas was the issue of diversity, the issue of needing to, if we want to grow our industry, we need to grow beyond our traditional Caucasian male customer and reach into more diverse constituencies. And we began our efforts of the task force by trying to educate people about the business opportunity that existed in these new markets. Around 2014, Wanda Kenton Smith became the chairman of the task force. She brought in some representatives who work in our industry that are from the Asian, African American, and Hispanic communities. And this group collectively defined that the top priority of this task force needed to be to educate the industry about the opportunity in these new markets and to identify the best practices that industry organizations or companies in our industry who were successfully engaging in selling to the Hispanic American and Asian markets. So the culmination of their work is this webinar and this presentation. This presentation and the work in developing the case studies was underwritten by the Recreational Boating and Fishing Foundation, Freedom Boat Club, the MRAA, Discover Boating, and NMMA. And the group identified 17 companies in the industry, and there are probably a few more, but they identified 17 who were doing a good job in reaching out to these new markets and selected 5 industry businesses to highlight or spotlight their best practices. And that is the meat of this presentation today. But before we get into the 5 video case studies, I'd like to share some hard facts with you. If we look at the Hispanic, African American, and Asian markets, and what do they mean in terms of opportunity for our industry? The Hispanic market in the U.S. is 55 million people. It's 17% of the total population in the U.S. and the largest minority group. In fact, Hispanics accounted for 48% of all population growth in recent years and are expected to reach 65 million people by 2020. It's only 3 years away. The median age of Hispanics is 29 compared to 43 for the non-Hispanic white population. And you can see how this is going to grow in coming years because 24% of all kids under the age of 18 are Hispanic and 26% of all kids 0 to 5 are Hispanic. Now we know that boat owners are generally homeowners, and by the year 2030, Hispanics will represent 52% of all U.S. homeowners. In fact, Hispanic-owned small businesses, and we know small business owners also tend to be boat owners, have been growing at 47% a year compared to less than 1% for non-Hispanic small businesses. Latino-owned businesses have grown 137%. And according to Nielsen, in 2015, Hispanics controlled $1.3 trillion in buying power. That's an amount that's larger than the GDP of Australia and Spain. And that buying power is expected to grow to $1.7 trillion by 2020. If we look at where the Hispanic population is located, we see that the top 5 states, which account for 68% of the Hispanic population, 4 of those states are in the top 10 voting states in the country, and Illinois is number 17. If we look at the fastest growing states for Hispanic population, we see that 8 of the top 10 fastest growing states in terms of Hispanic population are in the top 25 states for total voting registrations. So the growth, the Hispanic population, is where the voting population is. If we look at the African American market, and this research data was provided by Marvel Manga, being a number of sources that she used to provide it, that are shown on the screen. The African American population totals just under 14% of the population at 43 million people, and in the first 14 years of this century grew 35% faster than the total population and more than double the 8.2% growth rate of the white population. And it's projected to reach 18% of our total population by the year 2060. Here again, the African American population is younger than the white population. 53% of African Americans are under the age of 35. You'll recall that the median age of the white population is 43. And we're seeing a tremendous growth in the number of black high school graduates enrolling in college, which jumped to 70.9% from 59%. And today exceeds the enrollment rate of the white population, which is at 67%. And African Americans also have significant buying power. They spent $1 trillion in 2013 and are expected to spend $1.4 trillion in this year, 2017. And in fact, between 2005 and 2013, black income growth outpaced non-Hispanic white income growth at every level above $60,000 a year. In fact, we saw the largest increase for black households earning over $200,000 a year. That segment increased by 138% versus 74% for the total population. And what's more, African Americans are spending money on travel and hospitality and recreation to the tune of $40 to $56 billion a year, and black travel is expected to grow by 25% in this decade. If we look at where the African American population is concentrated, we see that the top 10 states for African American population are all in our top 20 voting states based on voting registrations. Turning to the Asian American market, this is a smaller segment, but a more wealthy and more educated segment than any of the others in our country. About 4.2%, or just under 15 million Asians in the U.S. population. The Asian American population has been growing 4 times faster than the total U.S. population. And the median age of the Asian population is 33.8, again compared to 43 for the white population, or non-Hispanic white population. And Asian Americans also have significant buying power and are highly educated. Asian American households have the highest median income of any racial group in 2014, at just under 73,000 versus just under 55,000 for the entire U.S. population. There are 1.9 million Asian-owned businesses in the U.S., and the Asian alone or in combination population of 25 and older, almost 54% have a bachelor's degree or higher level of education versus 32.5% for the entire U.S. population. And where is the American population, or where is the Asian American population in the United States? Well, it's growing in every region of the country, but the fastest growth has been in the southern states. Of course, many of the southern states, coastal states, are big boating states. In fact, if we look at the cities with the largest Asian population outside of Hawaii, the top 12 U.S. cities with the largest Asian population are in our top 20 boating states based on boating registrations. So we're seeing some really significant seismic shifts in population trends nationwide, and these present major business opportunities for our industry if we're prepared to take advantage of them. And one of the things that concerns me is a Boating Industry Magazine survey that was done in October of 2016. Now, this wasn't a scientific study, but nonetheless, it showed that just under 75% of the respondents were not concerned or somewhat unconcerned about the lack of the industry's outreach to a more diverse customer. And the reason cited most often was a perception that boating was not affordable to these populations, to these ethnic groups. Well, I think we've just demonstrated and shown in the data I've just discussed that indeed Asian Americans, African Americans, and Hispanics can afford boating. In fact, there are white populations in this country that are very poor and cannot afford boating, but we don't attribute that to all whites. By the same token, we know from our scrub of the census data, there are millions and millions and millions of Asians, African Americans, and Hispanics who have the financial wherewithal and income to own and enjoy the boating lifestyle. Now, they went on to say that fewer than a third of the survey respondents are actively attempting to attract non-whites to boating, and that the real concern was our current aging customer and the need to reach out to a younger customer and attract millennials. Well, the interesting fact is the millennial generation is the most diverse generation in the history of our country. We cannot reach out and attract a younger millennial population without attracting a more diverse population. They go hand in hand. So, are we missing the boat? Are we missing a significant opportunity? We've just talked about the latest demographic and trends and business opportunities and reviewed marine industry attitudes toward new markets. But I'm not going to convince you that you should be paying more attention to these new markets, but I hope that your peers can. So let's hear from the 5 case studies that we've done on 5 companies in our industry who are being successful in engaging and selling to new markets, and learn why these new markets are important to their business and how they're succeeding. Jonathan, I'll let you roll the video. By reaching new markets, tapping into the millions of Asians, Hispanics, and African Americans who can afford boating. They've tossed aside conventional thinking and are profiting from it. In this last video, I love the conversation about the need to cultivate, the need to build a farm system, the need to build a pipeline. My observation is that we have great sales organizations in this industry, but we need almost universally to become great nurture marketers as well. So Jonathan, do I have control here to advance this?
You should be good to go, Tom.
Okay, it's not advancing for me.
Let's see here. All right, go ahead and try now. Click on the screen, and then you should be able to advance the slide.
There we go. Whoops. So these businesses, they get it, and they're reaping significant financial rewards associated with nurturing and engaging new markets. You can do this too. This represents both a challenge and an opportunity, as we've heard from these 5 case studies. But I think it's important to clearly understand that there is a business opportunity here associated with engaging and developing new markets, and that the ramifications of ignoring these new markets on the boating industry are significant. I would suggest to you that as an industry, we cannot grow boating without reaching out to these new markets and nurturing and engaging them in the boating lifestyle. So there are resources available to you. There's a summary of today's new marketing strategies for success, one-pagers from each of these case studies that gives you some tips on how to get started and how they did it that are available for download from rblc.org. There are additional free industry resources available on Discover Boating and RBFF, or growboating.org and rbff.org. And did I miss a page here? I also just want to take an opportunity to thank the committee who, let's see. Oh, there it is. Thank the committee and thank the sponsors, the Recreational Boating and Fishing Foundation, Discover Boating, MRAA, Freedom Boat Club, and NMMA for their work in putting this together. We also, the task force members who worked very hard on this, with special commendation to Wanda Kenton Smith as the chair, who really just through force of her leadership brought this group together and made this happen. And with that, if we have a few minutes, we'll be happy to take some questions if there are any.
Just a reminder, if you have a question, you can submit that through the GoToWebinar interface right there on your screen. Looks like we do have one, Tom. The question is, when we identify new markets, what are the key ways to avoid reflecting a view of us and them?
So I think if you have the opportunity to review some of these videos, you could the answers are in there. But I think it's to try to look at boating through their eyes. You know, we heard Bob Papajohn talking about having an event for his Mandarin Chinese customers where he served Mandarin Chinese food to make them feel more at home. There are little things, I think, that you can do if you look at it through their eyes instead of through your eyes. I think it's also important, as several of these case studies indicated, that at some point as you move forward on this, you're going to want to bring someone on your staff who is a part of the community that you are trying to reach out to. And I think they can help advise. And I think the other thing is, and this came through the West Marine video, is you need to, in your dealership, have images of people on boats that are Asian or African American or Hispanic, depending on which target that you're trying to reach out to. And I certainly wouldn't recommend that you try to do more than one of these at a time. And it probably wouldn't make sense because in your particular market, probably only one of these is going to be a significant opportunity.
So we've got several people asking about when they'll be able to either get a copy of this or download the videos, see a copy of it later on. Tom, I know we had talked about that before, if you want to answer that question for folks.
Yeah, the videos will be posted online on YouTube and on rblc.org and probably other places, but at least those two sources, no later than February 1st. We may be able to get them on a little sooner than that, but certainly no later than February 1st. And I'm sure, Jonathan, I expect that you could get word out to everybody that was on this webinar as soon as those videos are posted and where they can go to see them.
Yes, definitely.
You know, I'd also like to thank Mike Menney and his film production company. They did a fantastic job in producing these 5 videos on a shoestring budget that we provided them, and so I congratulate them on the great work they did and thank them for their efforts to make this possible.
Yes, and somebody's asking about the rest of the slides, including the statistics. We obviously are recording today's webinar. Is your plan to get all that posted February 1st, or will we be able to post the rest of the webinar earlier? I don't know what your plans are for that, Tom.
You know, Jonathan, I think Wanda might want to weigh in here, but I think you can, from my point of view, you could post this webinar as soon as you're able to, and the slides that go with the presentation will also be posted, and we can probably get those posted more quickly. But we'll get that information out to you through Jonathan as well.
Great. I don't see any other questions. If anyone has a question, just a reminder, you can go ahead and type that right in there on your screen. Looks like I'm not seeing anything else, Tom, so we may be ready to wrap up.
Well, Jonathan, thank you and Boating Industry for arranging this webinar and helping us get this word out to the industry. And thank you, everyone, for taking time to spend an hour with us to learn about this. And I wish you all much luck as you move forward to grow your businesses.
All right, great. Thanks a lot, Tom, and everyone, thanks for joining us today.